She said I was jealous of her guy friends. I smiled and said not anymore. What I did next left her panicking. That line wasn't just a moment. It was the crack that split open the life I thought I had built with her. She was sitting on the couch, phone in her hand, glowing against her face, laughing at some text she refused to show me. I asked her if she thought it was fair to keep me waiting in the same room, while she texted other men until 2 in the morning. She didn't even look up. She just smirked, rolled her eyes, and said those words like they were nothing. Seriously? You're jealous of my guy friends? The sound of it hit harder than I expected. Jealous. That word felt cheap in my chest. Like all my concerns, all my pain, all those lonely nights meant nothing more than insecurity. She said it like my heart was an inconvenience, like I was the joke in the room. And that laugh, God, that laugh. It wasn't warm. It was sharp, dismissive. The kind that cuts deeper than any insult. I wanted to fight back. I wanted to scream, to tell her everything I had done for us. How many nights I stayed awake waiting for her to come home. How many dinners went cold on the table. But instead, something inside me went silent. My voice didn't rise. My fists didn't clench. I just looked at her, let my face settle into calmness, and said the words that surprised even me. Not anymore. She barely noticed. She just kept typing on her phone, smiling at someone else's words, not mine. That was the moment it hit me. The truth I had been too blind, too hopeful to see. I wasn't her first choice. I wasn't even her priority. I was the background character in her story, the safe option she could mock while chasing whatever thrill she wanted on her phone. Inside, though, I was burning. My chest felt like it had collapsed into itself. I thought of the years I gave her. Every ride to work when her car broke down. Every weekend trip I planned so she could relax. Every little moment I tried to make special. And in exchange, she gave me excuses. She gave me late nights, laughter at someone else's messages, and the cruel label of jealous for daring to care. But in that silence, something shifted. For the first time, I didn't beg. I didn't ask her to stop. I didn't try to compete with faceless names in her phone. I just sat there pretending her words didn't pierce me. While inside, I felt something else rising. Not anger, not rage, something colder, a kind of calm that whispered, enough. I let her think she had won, that she had put me in my place. She thought I'd swallow my pain, shrink into myself, and let her do what she wanted. And maybe that's what I had always done before. But not this time. Because the moment she called me jealous, the moment she laughed in my face, I knew. This wasn't about jealousy. This was about respect. And she had none left for me. That night, as she kept texting into the early hours, I said nothing. But in that silence, I began writing the first lines of an ending she would never see coming. Looking back, the signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. Love has a way of blinding you, of convincing you that every red flag is just a shade of pink you can live with. Her phone was always face down on the table, always. At first, I told myself it was just a habit. Then I noticed how she'd tilt the screen away if I walked by, how her fingers moved quicker when she thought I was close enough to catch a word, the little giggles at messages I was never allowed to see, the kind of laughter that wasn't shared with me anymore. I asked once gently if she had something to hide. She didn't get angry. She mocked me. She leaned back, smirked, and said I was insecure. Insecure. That word stuck to me like a stain I couldn't wash out. She made it sound like my pain was weakness, like caring was a flaw. And I believed her for a while. I told myself maybe I was too protective. Maybe I should loosen up. Maybe love meant giving her freedom even if it killed me inside. But the truth is, I wasn't insecure. I was ignored. I remember the early days, the way she used to light up when I walked in the room, the way she'd hold my hand like she never wanted to let go. We had moments that felt real, like the time I surprised her with a weekend trip after she said she was stressed. She cried in the car, telling me no one had ever cared for her like I did. I held on to that memory for so long, like proof that the love I felt was still alive somewhere inside her. But people don't just change overnight. They drift, slowly, subtly. And she had been drifting away from me for months, maybe longer. The dinners I planned turned into her scrolling through her phone while I ate in silence. The conversations we used to have about dreams and futures turned into one-word replies and distracted nods. She wasn't bored with life. She wasn't even bored with me. She was addicted to the thrill of being wanted over and over by anyone who would give her attention. Constant validation, a steady drip of ego boosts that I could never compete with because I was permanent. Realizing that broke something in me, but it also woke me up. That night, after she mocked me again and left me sitting in silence, I stopped questioning myself. Instead, I started watching. I started paying attention to the patterns I had ignored for too long. What time she laughed the hardest. Which nights she claimed to be with friends. The lies she told so casually, not knowing I had finally opened my eyes. I didn't confront her anymore. I didn't fight or beg. I just started collecting. Little things, screenshots, times, places. Every detail became a piece of the puzzle I had been too scared to put together. She thought my silence meant surrender. She thought I had accepted her late nights and secret giggles as just another part of who she was. But in truth, my silence had shifted into something sharper. I was building a case, not just for my own sanity, but for the moment she'd never expect. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the jealous, insecure partner she painted me as. I felt awake, focused, ready. And while she lost herself chasing validation from men who didn't matter, I was preparing for the moment when she would finally understand what it meant to lose someone who did. The storm inside me kept growing, and there were nights it felt unbearable. My friends told me to leave her. They said I deserved better. They said no one who loves you should make you feel this small. And deep down, I knew they were right. But what they didn't understand was that I couldn't just walk away. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed the truth in my hands, undeniable, so that when I finally closed this chapter, I would never doubt myself again. But her words haunted me. That mocking tone, that laugh. "You're jealous of my guy friends?" It played on repeat in my head like a cruel song, cutting deeper every time. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with those words in my ears, and the emptiness of the bed beside me felt heavier than any nightmare. She wasn't there most nights anymore, and when she was scrolling through her phone, smiling at a world I wasn't a part of. So I started digging, quietly, patiently. I wasn't looking for drama, I was looking for facts. I checked phone records, numbers she texted at midnight, calls she made during the hours she told me she was at girls' night. The patterns began to connect, forming a picture I had refused to see before. It wasn't one guy. It wasn't one slip. It was a habit, a life, a double existence where I was the anchor she came home to when the thrill was gone. The more I discovered, the heavier the grief became. I cried, more than I want to admit. Nights alone, sitting in the dark, staring at old pictures of us smiling like we had it all. I'd press my palm against the frame like touching the glass could bring back the person I thought I knew. And every time I remembered how hard I had worked to keep us together, how many times I sacrificed just to see her happy, the betrayal cut deeper. But something else was happening too. Each tear, each sleepless night, each stab of memory, It was changing me. The grief that once crushed me was hardening into something sharper. My silence, the thing she mocked as weakness, was becoming my greatest weapon. She thought I was shrinking, breaking under her indifference. She thought I was blind. But in that quiet, I was watching, recording, learning. I stopped asking her where she was going. I stopped fighting for her attention. On the surface, it looked like I had given up. And in a way, I had, but not on myself. I had given up on begging for love from someone who no longer respected me. And in that giving up, I found focus. I was no longer the jealous man she laughed at. I was no longer the one sitting in the dark, waiting for scraps of affection. I was preparing. Each piece of proof I collected was a weapon. Each lie she told became a reason. Each night she spent somewhere else added fuel to the quiet fire growing inside me. She thought she was free. She thought my silence meant defeat. But what she didn't know was that the man she left behind in tears was already gone. What remained was someone she wouldn't recognize, someone who wasn't broken, but building, someone who was ready. The turning point came quietly, almost like a whisper in the middle of all the noise. One morning, after another night of her stumbling in late, smelling like perfume that wasn't hers, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the stack of evidence I had gathered. Phone records, screenshots, dates, times. Every lie she thought she had hidden was now sitting in front of me in black and white. For the first time in months, I didn't feel confusion. I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. I made an appointment with a lawyer. Sitting in that office, telling a stranger the story of how my marriage had crumbled, was surreal. But as I slid the stack of evidence across the desk, I felt a strange sense of power return. For so long, I had been the one in the dark, the one mocked for being jealous. Now the truth was mine, and it was heavy enough to break the foundation of everything she thought she had built. While she bragged to her friends about her freedom, I was quietly cutting strings. I moved money into separate accounts, closed joint cards, and started shifting important documents where she couldn't touch them. Every move was deliberate, calculated. She was busy texting late into the night, laughing with men who had no idea she was married, while I was building my exit plan step by step. The contrast was almost poetic. She thought she was untouchable, that her little world of secret attention would last forever. I watched her twirl her hair on the couch, phone in hand, giggling as if I wasn't even there. She thought I was blind. She thought my silence was weakness, but in that silence I was sharpening my blade. I didn't confront her anymore. I didn't beg or plead. I let her live in her illusion of control. She told me once with a grin that she had options, that she didn't need to answer to anyone. I nodded and smiled, letting her believe the lie. While inside I was already gone. The sweetest part? She didn't even see it coming. When she left for another so-called girls' night, I was at the bank finalizing paperwork. When she sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone, I was making copies of files for my lawyer. When she laughed at my silence, I was drawing the blueprint of her downfall. I wasn't the broken husband she thought she had left behind. I was the man preparing to end this story on my terms. And while she chased temporary thrills, I was building permanent consequences. There's a kind of peace that comes when you stop begging someone to see your worth and start protecting it instead. And that night, sitting alone with everything in place, I realized something I never thought I would. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't weak. I wasn't jealous. I was ready. The climax didn't come with fireworks or screaming matches. It came in silence, in the kind of stillness that makes every sound sharper, every heartbeat louder. She noticed it first in my eyes. One night, after another round of late-night texting and giggles, she tried to test me again. She tossed out one of her usual jabs, calling me jealous, insecure, too serious. But this time I didn't react. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just looked at her, cold, detached, like a stranger sitting across the room. That unsettled her more than any fight ever could. She frowned, asked what was wrong, tried to pull me into the same old cycle of conflict and reconciliation. But I was no longer in the game. I had stepped off the board entirely, and she could feel it. When she demanded to know why I was acting different, I told her calmly. The accounts she once dipped into without hesitation? Closed. The credit cards she used freely? Gone. The home she thought would always be waiting, no matter where she wandered? Already protected. The lawyer had the evidence, the papers were ready, and all that was left was my final word. Her face went pale. For the first time in months, I saw panic in her eyes instead of arrogance. She asked what I meant, her voice shaking. I repeated it slowly, carefully, so there was no room for misunderstanding. She wasn't walking back into comfort. She was walking into consequences. She begged at first in disbelief, saying I couldn't be serious, that I was overreacting. Then her voice cracked and the tears came. She promised she would change, that she would stop texting them, that she would try harder. But the truth was, I didn't care anymore. My heart wasn't hers to toy with. It had already closed itself off. I let her words wash over me, the same way rain runs off stone. Every sob, every desperate promise was nothing but proof of how quickly her illusion of control had shattered. She thought she had all the power. She thought I would always be there, waiting, forgiving. But she was wrong. The sweetest revenge wasn't in shouting or exposing her publicly. It was in the calmness of my actions, the quiet way I had dismantled every bridge back to me. By the time she realized what I had done, moving the money, gathering proof, filing the papers, it was already too late. She begged, clung to my arm, even fell to her knees. But I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just a quiet certainty that this chapter was done. My revenge was not rage, it was closure. It was leaving her to sit in the wreckage of the life she built on lies, knowing that the one person who would have stood by her had finally walked away. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I walked away in silence, my steps steady, my heart calm. That silence became the loudest statement of all. She thought she had broken me, but in the end, it was her world that crumbled.